Such a long year. Somebody once asked the great country songwriter Harlan Howard to explain country music. And Harlan said, well, it's three chords and the truth. And I thought that was an eloquent description. Country music is a simple form of music, but it really is a reflection of us as American people. When it does its job, if you check back into the lyrics of Hank Williams or Jimmy Rogers, and on, you know, depending upon the time it was written and performed in, it really is a reflection of the American spirit, because it talks about our triumphs, our tragedies, our victories, our struggles, our heartaches, our pains, and, you know, and our hope and our redemption. All kind of gets wrapped up in those 3-minute little B movies called country songs sometimes. And the best country songs, in my opinion, are the kind that have been lived through by life's experience and survived at whatever the cost. And the first two records that I ever had in my life that made me fall in love with country music was the fabulous Johnny Cash and Flatt and Scruggs' Greatest Hits, 1963 down in Mississippi. Now this is when the Beatles were really exploding on the face of the earth. And years later, I got to have lunch with Ringo, and we were talking about our musical influences. He says, well, who were yours? And I told him, Lester Flatt and Earl Scruggs and Johnny Cash, people like that. He said, did you listen to the Beatles? I said, well, of course. If you lived on planet Earth, you had to listen to the Beatles. But I had my Beatles record for 1 week, and I gave it away. He said, don't worry about it. The rest of the world kept theirs. But those records followed me deep into my heart. And once again, coming from Mississippi, we were touched by the music of the blues from the Delta, rock and roll from Memphis. Dixieland came up from New Orleans. Gospel music was everywhere. But it was that 650 WSM beam that came at me from Nashville, that 50,000-watt greeting card that kind of drew me, because that's what touched my heart the deepest. And as time went on, the only two jobs I ever had in my life was with Lester Flatt and Johnny Cash. And funny thing, Johnny Cash and June Carter wound up being our neighbors, next-door neighbors. Connie and I lived next door to them in Hendersonville, Tennessee. And I miss him every single day. And that's the truth. And so after he passed away, I tried to write a song to make me feel better about losing my old friend. But it never would come out, so I just gave up on it. And between our homes, there's a beautiful piece of ground where in the 1960s, Roy Orbison had a house. And a tragic event happened there one night. Roy had two boys that were playing with a cigarette lighter and hairspray. And it caught on fire, and it burned the house to the ground and took the boys' lives. So he never wanted to live there again. So John bought the property from Roy and promised him he'd never build anything there, but he would only plant living things. So his version of living things was fruit trees. So he planted apple trees, pear trees, pecan trees, cherry trees, fig bushes, and it gave life back to the earth. And after he passed away, Connie and I bought that piece of ground from John Carter Cash and just left it as is. We just tended it now. It's kind of a beautiful sanctuary. But in the course of the springtime, the crows love coming to visit those fruit trees and pick the fruit. And I don't know about you guys, but I love crows because they're really weird birds and they dress like Johnny Cash. And this crow was picking fruit one day, and it inspired me. And the next morning I went home and I got up the next morning and wrote a song for my old friend. And I called Roseanne Cash in New York City, and I couldn't even get it out because it stuck right there in my throat. I said, but this is my song for your papa. And back to what Harlan said, three chords and the truth. It's called Dark Bird. On a cool September morning in the fall of 203, a crier from Jerusalem brought the news to me. His words were sharp and dreaded, and they made a lonesome sound. They snapped my heart in two like a stick stepped on the ground. Well, I cried and cried and cried, but the cutting of the pain, that I quietly said goodbye, so long in Jesus' name. Dark bird, watch you fly dark bird to another sky. And I'll bet you were a sight when you hit that cloud of love and flew out the other side in the form of a dove. Dark bird, dark bird.